I do
I know you've
everything
been
on
busy
it.
today. I've seen your face a couple of times on many screens.
Really?
So,
Oh, yes. It's my
yeah.
media day.
So I'll start off with probably the first question got asked this morning. The Housing Task Force pretty much blamed the municipalities for everything.
They sure did.
So I think they said, something about municipal fees and municipal processing timeframes and stuff like that. I'm sure you have something to say about
Well, it's cheap words, easy accusations, and there's zero evidence in that. And the report itself actually didn't present a stitch of evidence to back up that claim. So it's easy to throw that around.
that.
But in fact, the report itself provides evidence that the opposite is true. Uh, the highest number of housing starts were a year ago, 71,000, something like that. And that was under the current municipal fees and process.
Okay.
So so this report really missed the mark. There was a huge opportunity here to get at the real issues and also for the province to put some skin in the game themselves because they have the biggest red tape around. That's the Ontario Land Tribunal, which should be abolished. They talked about reforming the OLT from abuse, but they think the abuse is the public who has concerns. So it's really kind of the world is kind of upside down. In fact, the most appeals that we see in Burlington, almost all of them, are developer appeals, and they tie up the system, tie up housing, cost millions of dollars. It's planning is broken in Ontario, but not for the reasons in this report. So I could go on, and I'm sure you'll have other questions, but that needs to be reformed. The province needs to step in and improve the review time for their own ministries. We're often waiting and missing statutory deadlines because we're waiting for ministry approval. And the things that the report recommended, things like accessory dwelling suites, we're already doing that. So the essence of the report is a development free-for-all that would bankrupt municipalities and cut out democracy.
Yeah. Okay.
And any of the good parts, we're already doing them. So I'm not sure how bold any of that is, and there's no evidence to back up their claims against municipalities and fees, which pay for things like parks and community centers, because we can't just build housing. We need to build services too.
True. Now,
So
I'm sure when you read this, I mean, there is something that's broken, affordable housing, obviously. I mean, this is probably, I'm asking you a question that has probably a million answers, but how do you fix this problem? Like, where do we start?
well, the first thing you do is that you get everybody to the table to see what they can do. And the province didn't come to the table. They said municipalities are the problem, and here's how we're going to fix it. The province needs to come to the table. The federal government is coming to the table with their national housing strategy, but we need social infrastructure to keep up with growth. There was a lot of talk in the report about NIMBYs, so it's easy to throw around labels. For 12 years around here, since I become a councillor, I've tried to encourage developers not to dismiss residents as NIMBYs, and residents not to dismiss developers as greedy, profit-driven people, and to try and come together and say, look, we all have a part to play here in building our communities. So let's play it together. Labels don't help, and residents have a lot to contribute. But one of the reasons they get concerned about growth and the excessive growth that we've seen. So Burlington, of course, has blown past our population targets out to 2031 2 years ago. But guess what? We haven't built new community centers. The funding's not there. We haven't built new parks. Haber School, when all the kids were there, and now that they're back, portables. Province isn't contributing and paying in most of the fast-growing places in the region. Kids are in portables. With the population growth, the municipality paid $60 million for our hospital. The province didn't do that, so the province isn't keeping up. on their share of social programs, of transit help, those things which they really need to do. We can't just build housing. And so when residents get concerned about even more growth, when they're already feeling congested, when their kids are already going to schools in portables, when the traffic is congested because the transit infrastructure regionally hasn't kept up, you can understand why it's now affecting their quality of life, because it is. Sure. So we have to make sure that, and that was one of the recommendations from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO. I sit on their large urban caucus, and one of the recommendations was, the provincial social investments have to keep up to growth, and it hasn't. So we started from a principle of, let's all come to the table and see what each of us can do, and let's also be guided by evidence and data. So this report picked the facts that were convenient and ignored everything else, and then just flat out didn't have any evidence to support the rest of it. So I can tell you that residents appealing to the OLT is not the problem with the OLT. The very existence of the OLT is the problem with the OLT. So.
All right. So when are you running for premier again?
I got to brush up on my French.
You don't have to know French for premier.
You know what? Advice is free, and I'm happy to give my thoughts, as we did. The big city mayors provided advice, and that was one of the very first principles we said, is this has to be a partnership, not a blame game. We all have a role to play. Let's play it. And let's be guided by data and some other things as well. So there's a lot of solutions, right? And when you look at the land needed for housing, I'll just give you one example that was in our AMO report. If a school closes, the school board is required by provincial policy to put that on the market at fair market value. What does that mean? Highest and best use. What does that mean? Residential development. If a municipality or a region wants to buy that, or a nonprofit housing provider, they can't compete. So how are we going to get affordable housing? So provinces have land. Federal governments have land. Why are we charging different levels of government, essentially charging the taxpayer twice, to get this built? There are so many creative ideas out there to solve this. There's so many. If we come together and we look at it and we say, what can I do? So I put it to the province to go back to this report and say, where are you in here? What can you do besides just waving a wand and creating a development free-for-all that is going to bankrupt municipalities? Because their suggestion to reduce development fees and permits, those permits pay for the staff needed to review their applications. Those development charges pay for parks. They pay for schools. They pay for transit. Who's going to pay for that? And by the way, there was something in the report about the new taxpayers or the new residents pay all the cost of that new infrastructure, even though everybody benefits. Actually, that's not true, and it's never been true. So I wonder who was giving them their advice. There's a discount called benefit to existing resident. That just comes right off the top. So growth doesn't pay for growth. Existing residents share some of the benefit in their taxes, but it still doesn't pay for itself. And they want to eliminate it all. So guess what your taxes and mine will be doing if they do that. So these are not solutions. The other piece to that is, so let's say all the fees are cut. How do we guarantee that gets passed on to the consumer? And even more importantly, that even if it got passed on to the home buyer, what happens when it's sold a second time, flipped a year later? You've completely lost any affordability from those fees and permits, while also bankrupting municipalities. So these are as a high school project paper, I give it a C-, actually closer to a D.
So were you throwing stuff as you were reading this? Sorry. I know you don't.
I read it late. I was taking notes.
Okay.
I take notes and then I slept on it. And then it is, I honestly, I truly just felt really disappointed that,
Yeah.
that this really missed an opportunity to do something spectacular. And the solutions, such as they are already in process. The public is not the problem. Municipalities are not the problem. Fees are not the problem. Development charges are really not the problem. So what is the problem? What is the problem? And part of that is we don't have the ability, for example, to compel a developer to build 3-bedroom units in new builds. We can't force them. It's very hard.
Yeah.
Give us that authority, because families might live in these units if they were bigger than 600 square feet, right? And we have units now, that townhouses that are being built in the base of an apartment building. That's ground-oriented housing. It's just part of a larger build. Guess what? Those are 2-bedroom. We can't compel those to be 3-bedroom. That missing middle, that creativity in building a mix of housing, is we don't have the tools. The province could give us those tools.
I don't
okay,
have
I think
any,
I'm done.
Yeah, I was like, I don't have any more questions for today. I think that took up all 30 minutes. I'm kidding.
There you go.
So we'll move on. I know you're very passionate about that. And the sale of Robert Bateman High School is on track, I assume, right?
The purchase.
And,
yep, we are.
Yep.
Getting an offer. Yep.
Okay. What's the plan for the property for Brock University? And is there a time frame for that?
Well, they've announced this already, that they're hoping to be in by 2023.
Okay.
So we are really hoping to be able to accommodate that. So we'll see how it goes, right? But Brock is very committed to Burlington. We are very committed to them. We will make that work, or we will make something work in the interim. So we've got some options, and we're committed to each other, because it's great to have a university. This will also be a tenant paying, rent paying tenant. So it's some revenue for us, which we don't normally get at community centers, or at least not break even. So
True. And then are there any more interest for post-secondary institutions for other universities or colleges to come into Burlington?
Well, we are open for anybody who wants to come visit us and talk to us. So there's no rule that says you can only have one or two. We have at least two that are in the public sector, but I wouldn't say no to more.
Okay. Has the city of Burlington talked to any other universities or colleges?
I am in constant conversation with universities to see what their plans are, to see what we can work on. We talk about, the labor force. I share what I hear. There's an ongoing dialogue.
Okay.
So I won't say we're talking necessarily yet about campuses, but I'm in regular touch with our university partners in the region for sure.
Awesome. Here's a question. When can we expect to see shovels in the grounds at sites of 409 Brant, 2069 Lakeshore, and 2082 James Street? I know this is pretty specific. Do you know? 409?
409 Brant is across the street from 421 Brant, if it's the application I'm thinking of, where Elizabeth Interiors was. They were approved by the previous council for 17 stories. I did not support that. They took us to the tribunal to get 23 stories, which is what's being built across the street. I didn't support that either. And then this was under the old rules, the new old rules under the previous government. When they modified the LPAT, the applicant actually dropped they dropped their appeal.
Okay.
So 17 is there. I don't, anyone who wants an update on any project, actually, current development projects at the City of Burlington. So Google that.
Okay.
I think it's burlington.ca/current development projects, and go by ward. So the 3 that were mentioned, and you'll have to remind me the other 2, and I'll see if I can give more updates on those. But you can check there and see the most up-to-date information. So as it moves into construction, a construction management plan will be there. If it's still in the approval process, you'll see, if a statutory meeting is coming up, you'll see if there's not even an application yet. You'll see if there's a public meeting before an application is filed. So you can see all of that by every ward in the city. So that's 409 2062 James.
2082 James Street.
Yeah, so that one also the subject of an Ontario Lands Tribunal ruling, and that one they've just done some demolition work. There were 3 houses that will now be, I believe it's a 13-story building there. So that's where that is. That they're starting to prep the property. And then what was the other one?
It was 2069 Lakeshore. Also
the subject of an Ontario Lands Tribunal ruling for 29 stories. That one's going to be a while. They just got their approvals, and then it goes into site plan, and so that's going to be a while.
I love how your mind works. It's like Google Maps in your brain as soon as I say your
I know, you can probably see me like, where is
yeah, you are.
Buzzing? Yeah.
Following up last week's discussion we had about the hydro lines on Burlington Beach, says in November 2020, you and Gary Carr wrote a joint letter to Hydro One CEO asking to move or bury the lines. Did you ever hear back?
That's very specific.
That is a big story.
Who is your researcher? Wow, I'm impressed. We did, in fact. We have received updates back from staff, and those are public documents. We get periodic updates about the whole regional waterfront park, and so the most up-to-date information is what I gave you. That we are looking at various cost scenarios and feasibility scenarios, and I would say the most recent conversation that we've had at the region, there is a leaning towards wanting to bury them. The cost is quite significant. The hydro is looking at, well, what if we moved them? And so there's these ongoing conversations about that. So something will be done one way or the other, but that'll be sorted out in part with the regional waterfront master plan. So we were expecting to get an update on that actually recently, and I'll have to follow up and see when the next update's coming.
Okay. COVID stuff. February 21st is the next kind of milestone date in regards to the opening plan. Do you think they should get rid of the QR, vaccine passport thingies? I know restaurants hate them.
Actually, I haven't heard that. They've been around for a while, and it's an adjustment like anything. People have to get used to it. I've had it on my phone for 8 months, and so and people that need it printed out, you can still bring a paper copy in, right? Some people laminate a paper copy and pull it out of their wallet. So it's just a process of getting used to that change. And, we're not out of the woods yet. And the health measures have worked. They have worked to keep us safe. When we saw the infection rates, the hospitalizations, the ICUs, the deaths spiraling out of control over Christmas, and the additional measures came in, including proof of vaccination. Guess what? We have 18 new cases in Burlington, and we were getting, close to 200. So the measures work. The health measures work. Vaccinations work. They are safe and they are effective, and they are not new to be required to have a vaccine. And vaccines help reduce the severity of the illness, and they help reduce hospitalizations in ICU. So Anyone looking for data and evidence to back that up, please check out the COVID science table dashboard. It's been there 4 months. And this is why we've had to go to some other measures around closures to keep people apart, to protect those health resources. The best way we can do it while still not going into lockdown is through vaccinations.
Sure.
So those are important. It keeps people safe, and it will allow us to continue to reopen and get back to those things that we've really missed for 2 years. Like, we're all ready to be done with this. So I support the health measures. I think they're necessary. I think the evidence is there. It has helped to reduce the severity of what we've seen as of Christmas. And, we also need to protect hospital capacity for everybody who doesn't have COVID. We can't cancel surgeries and keep a healthy population. We can't keep locking down as the only response. We've got to use these other health measures to keep each other safe, because the mental health toll that this is taking is so significant. So, we're getting there.
Yes.
We're getting there. We're all tired. We're
Yes.
all frustrated. But we're getting there, and the measures work. So we just got to hang in there a little bit more and enjoy that, take every opportunity you can to enjoy those next steps and that gradual reopening. So,
Mayor, I will see you at your Fest.
Good.
Yes.
Looking forward.
100%. 100%. So here's a pretty specific question. You had a workshop for the preferred growth plan. What do you hope to get?
That was today, yes.
Okay.
Very long. Just got out of that and then went into another meeting and then came and talked to you. So the preferred growth concept, as it is known, the PGC, is how to divide up the population growth we are being assigned by the province among the 4 Halton municipalities. So we know we have to grow to 1.1 million to 2051, and there's jobs on top of that. So the concept that was presented, that we had a workshop on, so no decision making, was to, among other things, expand urban boundaries in Milton and Halton Hills. And that is something that has caused a lot of concern in the community. We've all, gotten hundreds of emails and petitions and calls from people really across the region and beyond. But my own Burlington residents, and we're not looking at any urban boundary expansion in Burlington, but our residents still really care about farmland in all of Halton, not sprawling out if we don't have to. And so at the end of that, it was clear that there were a number of us that felt really uncomfortable with proceeding with this plan. And the only option that we have is to bring a motion to direct staff to do something else. So I am working on that right now with staff and my counterpart in Oakville and other councillors who are really interested in seeing what alternatives we have. We're looking at an alternative to bring forward next week that would not see boundary expansion. So stay tuned. We haven't gotten the wording just yet, but that is what we are working on, and we'll see where it goes. I know there are some folks in Milton and Halton Hills that really support the expansion, and I understand their perspective. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. And there are some of us that really feel, we need to protect that farmland. It's prime agricultural farmland, notwithstanding whether it's being farmed right now. That's not the point. If you build on it, it can't be farmed. So when we're planning out to 2051, we need to plan for 30 years. And do we want to lose this land? And the other piece for me personally is that we can't just save farmland. We have to save our farmers. We have to be much more supportive and helpful to our farmers so that they can do their farming. And it is extra special difficult to farm near urban areas. That is a real challenge for a whole bunch of reasons. We have to understand those unique circumstances, and we're going to have to do more to be supportive. And those policies, those supportive policies, aren't going to be ready until 2023. So I believe personally that we should not ever be giving away farmland without having those supportive policies in place around how we're going to protect our farmers, because some of what's being considered for conversion that maybe not be farmed right now, well, maybe those policies would actually encourage somebody to buy that and farm it. So stay tuned. We're working on getting a motion together in the next day or two, and that will come back to Regional Council on the 16th.
Awesome.
See where it goes.
Awesome. February, Black History Month, right? Are there any events that stick out over the last week or so?
Well, I will be going to the African Caribbean Council of Halton event. Equality is not equity is the title of that. That's virtual. It's 10 to 11 in the morning, some speakers and a lot of good stuff there. Nice. I had the honor to actually do a sort of a soft opening for, it's called Black Excellence Canada. It's a store that features all Black entrepreneurs and vendors. They have a storefront in the Burlington Center Mall. I dropped by and met the owners. Like, just spectacular. I bought some stuff too, which is great. I got some Creole sauce, and a few other things, which I'm really looking forward to. So, but that actually, the response to the community for that store was like off the charts. People were really pleased to see it and have a place to go to support entrepreneurs and Black entrepreneurs, especially this month, right?
Nice. Awesome. And last question you brought made me think of it in the first question. Are you going to run for mayor again come October? Because it's going to come fast.
It is coming fast. So ask me again closer to May 2nd. That is the day that everyone can register, and I will have a formal announcement for you at the time.
Okay. Awesome. Those are all the questions I have, Mayor. Thank you so much for your time again.
Thanks for your time. It's great. Great questions. Take care.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.